So we've been hearing a lot about Marjorie Taylor Greene and her this week especially, and this is not the first time, by the way. I don't know why anybody's acting like this. The first time she suggested a quote unquote Second Amendment solution for people knocking on your door suggesting that you get a vaccine, because let's understand what this is about. Yeah, I mean it's she basically, these are now her applause lines. So of course she's going to repeat this stuff, and in many ways, I think she thinks it sounds brash and bold and strong and tough and Republican bumper sticker words, but she doesn't actually think anybody's going to take her up on it. So she can. It's kind of like the Sarah Palin targets. You can put a bullseye on something because it's macho. It's culturally appropriating toxic masculinity. Let's just call it that. And so you think it's just something you show, and you go like, look how tough we are, and we don't care, and I give 0 Fs, and I'm and nobody can stop me, and free speech and whatever. And until the time in which somebody actually shoots someone who goes to their door and says, "Hey, have you gotten vaccinated?" They can, which she thinks never will happen, by the way. She feels free to say that because it works for her brand. It helps her look like she's a rebel, and the issue that most of us have with it is there's absolutely people out there who would take this as the QAnons of the world, who think this is the end times, who follow Mike Lindell and Mike Flynn and all these folks, and think that this is these folks who are showing up at their door are not their fellow Americans who have volunteered or taken a job at $21 an hour that they're lucky to get in their area, going door to door and seeing if people have been vaccinated, and if they'd like to, here's some free information. No, that these people would shoot those folks for handing them a pamphlet and suggesting, because remember, the Republicans always have a problem with the concept of consent. When you ask them to do something or suggest it or make fun of them for not doing it, you are, quote, shoving it down their throat, right? We hear this all the time from the right wing. But if they attempt to shove something down your throat, you wanted it anyways, right? This is it's the Trump concept of consent. Yeah, and it's free speech in their beliefs. This is, and so there's a lot of folks who are recognizing that there is a true danger, that there are lunatics out there, and people are going, well, you want to mock Gates and Green as they go around the country saying these kind of things, or Trump from his from Mar-a-Lago, from the Winter Woodhouse, sending out these kind of messages and trying to that can weaponize lunacy, right? Mm-hmm. That's the fear, that they think it's just hyperbole, but it could result in real world danger. See January 6th, right? Now, that is absolutely a concern when Donald Trump is president, or if Marge Green or Matt Gaetz were actually, say, Speaker of the House or in control of any particular thing or on any.
Well, Trump's going to be president in like a week, right?
No. That's been pushed. I don't know if you know that. Oh. The Arizona report isn't going to come out for sometime in the next 2 months or the next 15 months.
Okay.
Is the trajectory for the Arizona recount paperwork, and then Mike Lindell's thing is next weekend. So that would be kind of anticlimactic if Trump was reinstated in the middle of it.
I was going to rent some things. I'm going to have to make some calls.
Yeah, I would put a pin in it for the time being. Yeah. But the idea is that these folks can be genuinely dangerous, so we mock them at our peril. And I would say the exact opposite. I think the more serious we take them, and the more serious we take their utterances, the more other people take their utterances seriously. And the more we mock them and deride them as ridiculous without any sense of merit, it undermines everybody else who would support them. Even if they want to go, but she's really telling the truth or whatever. The louder and more openly and more freely we are laughing, the harder it is for them to take that person seriously. I believe that with every depth of my soul. Maybe it's because I'm a comedian, and the fact that I'm a comedian is the most important part of my identity to myself. It is more important than my gender or my sexuality or my height or anything. That comedy in and of itself is my raison d'etre. And everywhere, in my regular interactions, because I recognize its power, and a couple of silly songs did more to bring down King George than did all the protestation of the bishops, is a famous historical quote, and it's true that people making fun of the fact that the emperor has no clothes, and people laughing at the Marge Greens and absolutely refusing to take them seriously while taking the lunatics seriously.
Right.
That's fine, but acting like they should listen to some degree by not by stopping making fun of her, or going, oh, this is very serious. It makes those people go, she must be onto something. They're scared of her. And we've heard this phrase, they must be, they're upset and they're afraid of us, so I must be onto something. This is the, we have seen this multiple times on the clips I show on my regular daily live stream at infotainmentwars.com or at fwank.com, FWANQ.com, every day, 3 o'clock Pacific time. I go on and I look at these folks, and I look at the stuff that people talk about in the news months later, and they go, where did this come from? Well, I show where it comes from. It's on the Victory channel and that show Flashpoint that they have on these like pseudo-Christian nutcases on there, and it comes from the dredges of Glenn Beck's show and Newsmax's less popular series, and little flights of fancy that Dan Bongino says after he sees Diamond and Silk say something after they get a letter from the Heritage Foundation that this is this week's talking points. We look at all this kind of stuff, and all of them lately have been saying if you watch MSNBC or CNN or any left-leaning thing, which includes Fox these days, according to them, that if you're afraid of something happening, it doesn't mean that you're afraid of danger. It means that they must be right.
Yeah.
That by worrying about the Arizona audit, it means not that we're concerned that they're undermining the elections of the United States or undermining the legitimate election of our president or any of the, which is a genuine concern that they can't. They're afraid of the truth. That's exactly right. And the same thing with Marge Green. If we stop laughing at her and start being afraid of her, then she must be on to something. Now, the analogy I would make is that if I've been watching, I don't know what you binged during COVID and then the current unpleasantness, the secondary spike, where you're like, we were going to go out to a couple of things, but we're going to tap the brakes on those things for a couple of days and see. But a lot of true crime, a lot of that stuff, because I always in my fantasy head feel like, all right, well, what gaps do I have in my security that I can perhaps fix that they didn't have in 1978 when BTK was first, finding his wings, and in, the analogy that these folks make where, well, they're afraid of it, it must be true, to me is like saying, that a home invader had a point. That it was the family that was protecting their children were afraid of the truth of the home invader. They were, you know what I mean? Like, they just didn't recognize, maybe that home invader really owned that house. That's the equivalent, right? That's the argument that they're making. Somebody barges into your house with a gun, you defend your family and die trying, right? And to the right wing and to the GOP and to the current Republican Party, they side with the home invader and go, maybe they had a deed. Maybe it wasn't your house you were living in for 15 years. Maybe the Moroccan King Sovereign Citizens group that is taking people's houses, stealing houses, and living in them, going, we're the indigenous people of America. We live here on the under the Moroccan flag. Maybe they had a point, right? What's more libertarian than being able to seize someone's house at gunpoint, right? Well, that's the equivalent of where these folks are. That's what Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's what Mike Lindell. That's what all they are. They are the home invader in this point, and they are bursting into the door saying, "Look, I have a gun. That's better than a deed. I have the former president and the entire machinations of the Republican Party, and I have all these people, and you're afraid of me, so this gun must be loaded." I've got so to me, it is incredibly important going forward, and people can differ, and I'm sure you will hear different ideas from other people, but if we like diversity of opinion, that's what my show is good for. And what I would like to say to everybody who listens to the show regularly is, do not refuse, as an act of civil disobedience, refuse to take Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz seriously. Matt Gaetz will be eventually charged with child sex trafficking, and that will be the end of his career in Florida politics until he runs for governor. And Marjorie Taylor Greene will peter out like any of the historical lunatics that have passed through the Republican Party and run on racist and bigoted tickets over the years that you don't even remember. Yeah. There have been
all I remember is I'm not a witch.
Right. Yes, right. There are dozens of people like, oh yeah, remember her, remember him? That she will pass into that chunk of history as well as the ridiculous, cartoonish, members of the House phase in and out. Unless we continue to take her seriously in our utterances about her. Now, if she does something illegal, she should, the FBI, the Capitol Police, the Nancy Pelosi, they should take that part of it seriously. But even then, mockery and derision on top of it, more so than almost any other thing, because I refuse. This is where I'm digging in. I refuse to take this person seriously. Yes, and like Sarah Palin. At no point, Sarah Palin was taken seriously at one point. They were like right when, if you'll recall, we got to take a break in a second. Do you remember when Sarah Palin was first added to McCain's ticket? Do you remember when that happened? Like, I didn't know who she was. Yeah. And you were like, wait a minute, she's the most popular governor in the country?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course you're popular if you're the governor of the state that hands out government checks to everyone, that basically has UBI, built into the structure of the state from the oil. It's easy to become the most popular. And we were all like, oh my God, did McCain outflank the Democrats by putting a woman on his ticket? And then you're like, oh, they picked her because she's pretty and dumb, because that's the only person Republicans that could hold their gaze. There were tons of qualified Republican women that could have run. But why did they pick her? Eye candy, and it was embarrassing, and it was shameful. And it was, in many ways, embarrassing to her, even if she doesn't care.
Yeah.
But taking her seriously didn't benefit us at all. And ultimately, it was the mocking and derision that she earned so well that continues to this day that keeps her from being a formidable force in the Republican Party. And the same thing will be true of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and all of that crowd. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Parts Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. We're here every Saturday. Join us, won't you?